Hey there, and welcome. Our planet is this amazing patchwork of incredible, totally unique environments. From scorching hot deserts to frozen tundras, each one has its own rules, its own residents, and really its own personality. So today, we're going to take a tour of these massive biological neighborhoods that we call biomes to figure out the simple rules that create all this incredible diversity on Earth.
It seems like such a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer, well, it gets to the absolute heart of ecology. It's all about that fundamental connection between a living thing and where it lives. And to really get why life thrives in one place and not another, we gotta follow the money. Or in this case, we gotta follow the energy.
So I want you to imagine all life on Earth being plugged into this single massive invisible power grid. Now, this grid doesn't run on electricity. It runs on energy that flows from one organism to another. And if you can understand this flow, you've got the key to understanding pretty much every ecosystem on the planet.
At the base of it all, you have the power plants of this grid. We call them producers. These are the self-sufficient ones, the autotrophs, that capture energy right from the source, usually the sun, and turn it into actual food. Every blade of grass, every giant tree, all the algae in the ocean, they're all producers, and they form the absolute foundation for everything else. And then, you've got everybody else. These are the consumers, or heterotrophs. From the tiniest little insect to the biggest blue whale, none of them can make their own food. To get their energy, they have to eat other organisms, tapping into that energy that was first captured by the producers.
So this transfer of energy creates what we all know as a food chain. It's a pretty simple, straight line. The sun's energy gets soaked up by a plant. A rabbit, that's our primary consumer, comes along and eats the plant. Then maybe a fox, a secondary consumer, eats the rabbit. See? The energy moves right up the chain. But, and this is a huge but, it's not a very efficient process. Not at all. In fact, and this is the part that's kind of mind-blowing, only about 10% of the energy actually makes it from one level of the food chain to the next. That's it. Just 10%. So, where in the world does the other 90% go?
Well, think about it. That rabbit didn't just sit around waiting to become fox food. It used up 90% of the energy it got from that plant just being a rabbit, hopping around, keeping its body warm, growing, and all the things it needs to do to live. Most of that energy is burned for fuel or just lost as body heat. And this 10% rule has massive consequences. It's the reason you'll always find way more plants than rabbits and way more rabbits than foxes. There just isn't enough energy at the top to support huge armies of predators. Okay, so we've got this universal rule about how energy flows. Now, let's see how this rule plays out on the different stages around the world. What is it that creates these distinct neighborhoods, these biomes, in the first place?
So what is a biome really? Well, you can think of it as a giant community of life. It's a huge area that's defined by two main things: the kind of climate it has and the main types of plants that are able to grow there. And those two things, in turn, decide which animals can make a living in that place.
And what controls the climate and the plants? It's amazing, but it all really boils down to just two things. Two master architects that shape everything. Temperature, which is just how hot or cold it is, and precipitation, which is how much rain or snow a place gets. That's it. Those two forces are what sculpt every single biome on Earth.
All right, you got the ground rules? Awesome. It is time for our world tour. We're going to travel the globe and compare these incredible environments, zone by zone.
Our first stop is going to be right around the equator, where temperatures are high all year long. But even here, where it's always hot, that second architect precipitation creates worlds that are dramatically different from each other. So on one side, you have the tropical rainforest. It's hot and it's wet all the time. That combination creates this explosion of life. It's got the highest biodiversity anywhere on the planet. But then you have the savanna. It's also hot, but the rain comes and goes with the seasons, and that one crucial difference stops a dense forest from growing. Instead, you get these vast open grasslands that can support massive herds of grazing animals. See? Same temperature, but a different water supply, and you get two completely different neighborhoods. Okay, from a world of water, let's head to a world where water is the main thing holding life back. Let's check out the dry zones. First up is the classic desert, which is basically defined by how little water it gets. Life here, like cacti and succulents, is built around one single rule: find whatever water you can and hold on to it for dear life. Now, the chaparral is also dry, but it's a different kind of dry. It's covered in these dense, tough shrubs that are built to handle not just drought, but also frequent fires, which are actually a key part of the ecosystem. So you've got two dry worlds with two totally different strategies for survival.
All right, let's leave the extremes behind and move away from the equator. We're arriving in the mid-latitudes, the temperate zones. And the defining feature here isn't constant heat or constant dryness, but constant change. Yep, the four seasons. And this is such a cool example of how things work. Both temperate grasslands and temperate deciduous forests get four distinct seasons and pretty reliable rain. But just look at the difference. The grasslands are these vast, open plains with incredibly rich soil, perfect for grazing animals. The forests, on the other hand, are full of broadleaf trees like oaks and maples that lose their leaves every fall, creating a dense canopy and a totally different community of animals. Okay, you might want to bundle up, because for our last big stop, we are heading way, way north to the high latitudes where the one thing that defines everything is the cold.
First, you hit the boreal forest, also called the taiga. It's this enormous belt of coniferous, evergreen trees that stretches across the globe. It's basically the last stand for forest before it just gets too cold. And if you go just a little further north, you cross an invisible line. It gets so cold and so windy that trees just can't grow at all. This is the tundra, a landscape defined by permafrost, a layer of soil that's permanently frozen, where only the toughest, low-growing plants like mosses and lichens have any chance of survival. And then, of course, you get to the absolute extremes, the poles. Here, it is so cold and so dry that the very foundation of life shifts from the land completely into the sea. The entire food web here is built on tiny little algae floating in the ocean, which then support the fish, which support the seals, and, of course, the polar bears that call this icy world home.
Wow. So we've basically done a full world tour, from the rainforest all the way to the ice caps. But looking at all these biomes isn't just a geography lesson. It's really a lesson in how deeply interconnected all life on Earth truly is.
And this is the big idea I want you to walk away with. Each of these neighborhoods is a masterpiece of adaptation, right? It's a unique solution to the puzzle of how to live, shaped by those basic forces: energy, water, and temperature. But here's the thing. None of them exist in a bubble. They aren't isolated worlds. They're all interconnected, constantly influencing each other, making up one single global system, our biosphere.
You know, these incredibly complex systems took millions and millions of years to evolve, shaped by those slow, steady forces of temperature and water. But now, there's a new force on the scene, one that's reshaping them at a speed the planet has never seen before: us. And that leaves us all with a pretty critical question to think about. What role are we going to play in their next chapter?